Good evening, all, and welcome to Practically Tactical. This is our live show streaming to you on YouTube, but you can catch all of our shows on an iTunes format podcast. New episodes drop every Sunday at noon Central Standard Time. Be sure to put your questions in the Google Plus Q&A app or the chat here, and I'm sure Mike will answer your questions, or will get your questions answered for you. I'm sure Mike loves to answer questions about all sorts of guns, gear, and training. So be sure to put those in. We'll get them answered during our dedicated Q&A segment. Be sure to click on that like and share button as on the video, as it helps spread the word around YouTube. A couple pre-podcast show announcements. Check us out on Instagram. We're going to be doing a giveaway here shortly, and practicallytactical.com is almost 100% caught up on the website, so check that out. And our special guest this evening is Mike Lamb from Stoic Ventures. Thanks for coming on, Mike.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I can tell you guys it's going to be a good show. And let's move on to the podcast start here, and we'll get the show rolling. Welcome to Practically Tactical, episode 38, brought to you by the Firearms Radio Network. The Practically Tactical show features a roundtable discussion about guns, gear, and shooting. For more information on the show, links to our guests, guns, and gear we discuss, please visit practacpodcast.com/038. Tonight's show is a dandy. I haven't used that word before, so you know it's good. We're talking with Force Recon Marine and owner of Stoic Ventures, Mike Lamb. Thanks for coming on, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, Nick.
Of all of our guests, you might be the most operational, and the most dynamic adverse environments. Did I get all of that in there correctly?
I mean, if that's what Steve told you, I really don't have a choice to be able to even refute that. So.
I'm pretty sure Steve hates every single one of those words, and that's why he said for me to use them.
Well, any word that's not a grunt, Steve probably hates.
Oh, okay.
Grunt, Steve.
Anyone that has more than 4 letters?
Yes.
Well, Mike, where can people go online to find more information about Stoic Ventures and the training you offer?
Of course, you can come to our website, www.stoicventures.com, STOIC Ventures, VENTURES. Check us out on Facebook. We're there too, but most of the time we're actually out on the range, so that's really the best way to get to know us.
All right. Be sure to take some classes, guys. I know. You're based in California, correct?
Correct. We do typically 2 open enrollment classes in California a month. Most of the other training that we do is closed for different agencies that we train, and that's all over the country. So we might be, next week we're going to be in New York, Ohio. Last week we were in Florida. Back here, California, got a couple classes the next 2 days, and then we're on the road again.
Traveling man. But
yep.
We have one show announcement before we get into it here. We just released an episode 40 promo video. It's the most epic video, I will say, ever released. Episode 40, for those that don't know, is going to be probably get me fired from the Firearms Radio Network, but it's going to be absolute fun. Check the show notes for a link. It is the most insane video you'll ever see. So let's move on to the main segment. So, Mike, what's kind of your history, man? Were you born and raised in California? Were you involved around firearms, or did you get that from the military? Kind of what was it like for you growing up?
I grew up in Columbus, Ohio. Growing up in Ohio, it's Midwest. Not a whole lot happening with, I grew up in a quiet neighborhood. It's not like, I got introduced to guns by, getting jumped into a gang or anything like that. Steve. But, I grew up, my family, they had a bunch of, agriculture land that, we go out to the farm. I pretend that I know what I was doing to hunt and shoot like that, from a young age. And then kind of got a spark, got an interest in it for shooting, for hunting, the shooting sports in general. And, hunted through high school, went to college briefly. College wasn't for me. The Marine Corps was. So I came in the Marine Corps, fired my first pistol in the Marine Corps. Never fired a pistol before in my life. Always wanted to, but my dad told me that those guns were only good for one thing, and I did not need to learn how to do that at my age. But pretty ironic, all things considered now. But yeah, that's where I kind of got my start. you know, in Ohio there wasn't a whole lot. I mean, there's white-tailed deer, and then there's, you know, upland game, waterfowl, things like that. I think, you know, me being the master hunter I was in high school, I think I got one deer and probably, you know, a half dozen pheasants, and I thought I was the cat's pajamas when it came to, you know, an outdoor guy. Yeah, so that's kind of where I got my start, literally, especially, you know, kind of pun intended on this, but, you know, I knew enough to be dangerous, literally. I mean, we're talking about firearms and going out and hunting and things like that, but, you know, I had a passion for it, and luckily, you know, the Marine Corps gave me some of the best formalized training in the world that I used as my foundation to go forward, and then working in joint environments in the Marine Corps for so long, different shooting packages with different branches of the service, other military services, as well as, you know, private instructors that would come out and train our units, kind of like what I do now. I've kind of come full circle to, you know, getting exposed to different training. Fundamentals, you know, always kind of remain the same, but getting everybody's take on it was a pretty neat thing, and, you know, kind of built me into what I am right now.
Say, dude, if you graduate from college, do they let you into the Marines?
Actually, yeah. Wow. I was enlisted for 9 years, and then I got commissioned as an officer. So, actually graduated college as a Marine, and came back to them as an officer. So,
oh, yeah, well, congrats on that.
Well, I didn't get to do as much fun stuff as I did when I was enlisted. So,
I bet. So, speaking of military, and I said so, you were in the Marines.
Yeah.
And then, and it's funny enough too, because I've told the story before. Like, I almost ended up joining the Marines. My mom wouldn't sign the papers because I was underage, which is probably good because I'm sure I just would have never made it and cried through the whole thing. But when I went there, they were like, yeah, if you want to ride these, you know, suppressed motorcycles, and, you know, if you want to do all this stuff, man, you got to go force recon. So I was like, I was like, oh yeah, you know, that was the, you know, the 150-pound version of me, and I was like, yeah, I'll do it, man. It's gonna be awesome. I love riding motorcycles. I had never ridden a motorcycle in my life, still haven't. But was your goal to go in the Marines just to go into the Marines, or was there higher aspirations of, you know, hey, I want to see how far I can take this, or?
You know, honestly, I came in the Marine Corps. I didn't know anything about the military. I knew with what I was doing, I needed to get my ass kicked, and that's why I came to the Marine Corps. I didn't know anything about the Army. I didn't know anything about the Navy. But guys that I went to high school with that enlisted right out of high school to go to the Army or go to the Navy really weren't the kind of guys that I didn't look up to them. They weren't bad guys or anything like that, but it just wasn't guys that I'd look at and be like, you know, that dude's a stud, and that guy's kind of a badass. And those guys went in the Marine Corps. And I'm like, hey, I don't know if I'm any of those things, but I know those guys were, and I respect the hell out of them. So I don't know anything about anything, but yeah, I'm going to go in the Marine Corps. We'll see what happens. Didn't know anything about special operations. Didn't know. I heard of force recon, but I had no idea what that was. Recon, the whole reconnaissance community in general, I had no idea what that meant. So it was definitely an eye-opening and a learning experience. Funny thing, you're talking about riding, you know, the suppressed motorcycles, stuff like that. I mean, they weren't necessarily suppressed. I mean, they're about as suppressed as a Honda Civic because it's got a freaking muffler on it. But it was funny. I remember you reminded me of a story. When we were in boot camp, there was this kid, one of the recruits in my platoon, and he messed up. He did something, and one of the drill instructors asked him a question, and he's like, "Well, this recruit doesn't need to worry about it because this recruit's going to be a pilot." And they look at him. They're like, "You lost your mind. You're not going to be a pilot. You're enlisted, and you need to be commissioned to be a pilot." He's like, "No. My recruiter said if I go to boot camp, I can be an F-18 pilot." And it was just kind of like you heard the record just scratch there, and you know, they snatched this kid up, and honestly, I mean, it started an investigation. And what happened by the time we graduated from boot camp, his recruiter was getting court-martialed for telling not only that kid, but a bunch of other kids that they were going to be pilots, generals. I mean, just absurd, ridiculous things.
Oh,
So you always hear kind of grandiose stories about, you know, recruiters to get people to come in. For me, I was an easy sell. I showed up. I was like, hey, yeah, I want to shoot something. And they're like, okay, here, sign up here. Great. Did the physical, did the other stuff, and 2 weeks later I left. So I was easy. I didn't stick around long enough to, you know, have any negative experience with recruiters. And there's guys I know that got stuck on recruiting duty that were, you know, hard, you know, tough Marines that, you know, utmost integrity and honest. But people are people. You're going to get a few in there that they're going to put some F-18 pilots in boot camp. I don't know.
Oh, I feel bad for that kid because that's like obviously the point I realized. Oh, I've just made the worst decision of my life.
Yeah. Yeah. The wall
well, I think it's good to see that they held him responsible too. I mean, you know, that's good to see too.
No, absolutely. I mean, there's no way around that in the Marine Corps.
So the most important question is, did you ride the suppressed motorcycle then? Were you able to do that?
Yes, I rode a dirt bike with a muffler on it.
Okay.
It's every bit as sexy as you make it sound.
That was a big no. I remember them bringing me in. They were like sitting down, and I took their little like pre-test for like the ASVAB thing, and you know I scored high on it. And they were like, "Have you heard of Force Recon?" They were like, you know, they I like one thing he said to me was like, he's like, "Yeah, we give the SEALs the operations we pass on." Like that was a big thing of his. And then they played this video, and you know, there's tons of the motorcycle thing. They're big on the motorcycle thing for the Force Recon thing. But again, my mom like refused to sign the papers, and she'll tell you now it's like her biggest regret, because I was a pain after that. And then, which is good because I would have cried every single night at boot camp. I'm sure of it. So it all works out in the end.
Yeah, when I first got to my unit, yeah, I was making funny, whimpery noises because those guys just fed me my lunch. So yeah.
But did you know you were going to get paid going in? Did you know that?
It's a relative term. I knew I wanted to go to dive school so I could get extra money for proficiency pay, so I could buy more drinks for girls out at the bar. But
okay.
Yeah, I knew my buddies that were going to college and graduating and getting, you know, follow-on degrees after that were getting paid way more than I was. But I was having way more fun. So.
Yeah. No, a couple episodes that we had former Navy SEAL Rich Graham on, and he said he went and signed up for the Navy. He didn't even know he was going to get paid till like he was in boot camp. They're like, "We need your bank account information." He's like, "For what?" They're like, "Do you want to get paid?" He's like, "You get paid for this?" They're like, "Yeah." So he was happy, needless to say. So we'll move on here. So after the military, obviously you went with Magpul Dynamics there, but what happened? Was there any gap between leaving the military and then going with Magpul?
So I got medically retired. So after I got injured, I kept getting surgeries and everything like that, and I'd get better, and I just start getting ready. I'm doing workups, getting ready to take my team out again, and you know, boom, something else would break, snap, whatever. I have to go back in and get cut on and operated on. So kind of saw the writing on the wall, and I went back to school and, you know, earned an MBA. So as I was finishing up my MBA, they're processing my medical paperwork and getting out, and I was doing interviews. I graduated in, December of 2008. So, you know, finishing up this program. October, I'm doing phone interviews, you know, for, you know, different investment banks and finance companies on Wall Street. So I thought I was going to be doing that kind of stuff. Well, the market collapsed in October of 2008, and all those phone calls stopped. Those stopped. I started thinking, hey, what's a recession-proof industry? I came up with a few things. I'm like, well, you got drugs, you got gambling, you got prostitution, and you've got defense. So I think one of those things I could do legally. So, you know, the defense thing, I kind of curtailed my resume for that, sent it out. I got a phone call from Magpul, and went out there, interviewed with those guys. It was about a 4 or 5 day interview period. Made it through that, and, you know, next thing I know, we're going out to Germany for IWA for a trade show. It's kind of like SHOT Show. international out there. And yeah, it was just you know, straight out of the Marine Corps. I was still on terminal leave with the Marine Corps when I was working at Magpul.
Well, here's something too. Because what year did you join the Marines?
96.
Okay. I don't think we've talked about this before. I don't know if we had anyone that was on during that time, but was there just a dramatic? Because obviously you were in during, the start of both wars and 9/11. What was it like from like pre those to after? Was there just a dynamic shift in the way everything was done, or?
Yeah, big time. So when I started out, we were doing a lot of work in the Balkans, and the Balkans.
Kosovo.
Yeah, Bosnia, Kosovo. Started off in Bosnia, then did a few tours in Kosovo, and doing that. I mean, it's a peacekeeping mission. I mean, we would still go out on mission. We do reconnaissance, missions. We do direct action missions, things like that, counterterrorism missions. But the big thing was, some people we'd be helping out one day, we'd be back there 2 days later, snatching them up, bringing them in for war crimes, things like that. So it was really the ebb and flow, and it wasn't. I mean, and this was at the time I was working at a joint command, so this is Army, Air Force, Navy. We're all doing this stuff, and it's like, oh, we're hooking. We're working with the Albanians today. Sweet. Tomorrow we're going to be snatching up Albanians. Today we're working with the Serbs. Okay, great. Tomorrow we're going to be snatching up Serbs. It was just going back and forth. And when I was there, I mean, there was guys, Desert Storm guys that were the senior guys, guys from Battle of the Black Sea. Mogadishu, that were senior guys, things like that, that had really seen the divisive of it's black and white. Those are bad guys. We're good guys. We're going to engage targets. Over during the peacekeeping in the Balkans, when we were working over there, it was the rules of engagement. I mean, they changed like the tides. I mean, it was a different rule of engagement. I mean, sometimes multiple times a day. Different sectors had different rules of engagements, things like that. So it was really kind of confusing. You were like, well, hey, I thought we were going to do this. Oh, wait, that changed, which you get used to a lot, but it's far more of a fundamental base with what you're allowed to do and engage over there. And then I was on a different assignment in the Middle East when 9/11 happened. And, I mean, that changed everything big time. And when 9/11 happened, it was, as far as from a special operations standpoint, it was like we were finally allowed to take our gloves off. It was, hey boys, it's been straight up. We were told by the hires in the command, it's hunting season, and it was, and we got to do a lot of good work, and we got to fight the good fight. I mean, that was probably one of my greatest honors, was being able to be one of the first guys over there, to defend the honor of this great nation. And it was really kind of refreshing and rejuvenating to all of us that had kind of been, almost political pawns, because we were special operations and such, these different conflicts that we really weren't allowed to do much in, or we were allowed to do much in, but we couldn't, or this, that, the other. It was a very politically motivated thing before 9/11 happened, and being part of that, and getting to do something righteous for this country, I mean, that was a pretty big deal. So I was very thankful for that opportunity.
So politicians ruin everything. We can just agree on that part, right?
Yeah, that's kind of what they do.
Okay. No, I was curious. I don't know if we've had anyone that was on through that. I just imagine it was a really dramatic shift. Obviously,
and it was, and even looking back now, since I'm doing a lot of training and consulting now, looking at the environment, the machine, the military, how much it has shifted, and how much we've learned, and how much we've evolved in the last 13 years. I mean, it's been huge. I mean, before, a regular infantry line unit in the Marine Corps would have flak jackets, deuce gear, iron sights, and that was it. Go forward and do great things. And they did, and they still do. But now they've got body armor. Now they've got nods. Now they've got illumination systems and optics for their weapons. And it's unfortunate that it takes a war to jumpstart that. And even before, when we would do CQB training, things like that, we would do that with a lot of different law enforcement agencies, whether federal or local. Everything from like DEAs, different task force we train with, marshals, LAPD, and these guys, because these guys are going out on hits every single day. And we would do a lot of cross training with those guys to get familiar with it, get proficient, and learn their TTPs. So learning their TTPs of what they were doing, it's funny because all of their hierarchy guys, their cadre, were all Vietnam vets. So the pendulum went from everybody was in Vietnam, they came back and they got jobs as cops or whatever. They were driving the train for training. And they defined everything they came across with their experience, because experience is the greatest teacher we have, with their experience, and then that they translated that into a law enforcement realm. And that's what drove all the training. Military, we were in a Cold War for the longest time. And then, the brevity of, Desert Storm, really, that was more of a strategic military force. It wasn't a lot of small unit tactics, not a lot of special operations influence. It was a lot of air, a lot of armor, and superior technology that resolved that conflict so quickly. So we still had a large gap because the military had stood down so much in their capacitance. It just hadn't had an opportunity to do a lot that we were getting a lot of our training from law enforcement. Now you've got 20-year-old guys that have gone through more doors than most 20, 25-year career officers in the law enforcement community. And that is in no way, shape, or form a knock against these officers. It just is what it is. And that experience now, things are, they're still going over there. One of my best friends is, heading up the task force out in Afghanistan right now. So we still got guys over there doing the Lord's work. But as it's winding down, as we're shrinking the military, a lot of these guys are coming back. And you've got a lot more trained badasses that know more about war and about living than ever before, ever since our grandfathers coming back from World War II. So you've got this just volumes, this wealth of knowledge that's coming back from overseas that, hopefully, will make our country that much safer, that much more secure. But now the pendulum is going to switch back to where it's going to be all the military guys that served, in the global war on terrorism are going to be the ones that are going to be driving the training for law enforcement. And then law enforcement it's going to be those vets that are now law enforcement that are going to drive the train, 15 years from now for the military guys, because once those guys get out of the military, and the pendulum, it just continues to swing.
Yeah.
One day it's going to be law enforcement driving the train for training. Next day it's military driving the train for training, and that's just the natural ebb and flow of it.
No, that's what a couple months ago we had Don Shipley on, former Navy SEAL, and he was talking about that because he came in during the early 80s, late 70s, can't remember which one there. He talked about how exactly what you're talking about, this pendulum of, so he was, when he went through BUDS and CERT and all that stuff, it was all the Vietnam vets with all their experience. And then there's just been this lull for a while, and then with the war, he was basically talking about how what makes a good military is unfortunately going through conflict, because that is the best way to learn to get better. And then we're talking about with my brother, paramedic, and the amount of knowledge, not for just basically my brother went to Iraq and but just from the military, of how much other sectors learn from that, like medical, for example, of how far they've advanced in the past 10 years is beyond the past 40 years previously to that. And it's like you said, it's unfortunate that it takes a war to learn these things or to, to make the machine better, but there are some good byproducts out of it.
No, there really is. You're talking about the medical aspect. There are more products out there, coagulant, pressure dressing specific, without throwing out any name brands, to help penetrating trauma, whether it's from a gunshot wound, knife, shrapnel, things like that, are amazing. The science is amazing behind these things, and that's going to save lives. The other technologies that we were using, just going out creeping, doing our thing, huge vital resources for the search and rescue community with these guys coming back. All these lessons learned, we can apply them, in a hostile way back here stateside, making quality of life better for everybody. So it's not just one of those things where we become better at killing. Well, we do, but we become better at preserving human life in the same breath. So, I mean, the advances with ballistics, things that we're doing out there, I mean, never before were we in a theater like Afghanistan where we can sit there and engage targets, 2,500 yards plus, up in the mountains, shooting cross valleys, all that different type of stuff over there. We learned a lot out there. Different advances with just different systems that the military had, moving to off-the-shelf technology. Going out buying a Garmin or a Magellan instead of using some of the really antiquated, like the plugger system that we had. Target ranging, target designators, things like that for airstrikes and close air support. It has come so far in the last 15 years. I mean, it's unreal. I mean, I've been out now for 5 years, and just with the new technology, I mean, it blows my mind. Everything from kit for the small arms for the individual operator to bigger picture things for more specialized, military missions. That it's amazing. I mean, that technology, because hey, wars cost money. Money makes things happen, and that's the way the machine works, and that's what has given us so many of these great advantages.
Yeah. Well, sorry, I went off a total tangent there. I was interested in that. So, but we'll get back. So, you were one of the very first Magpul instructors, weren't you?
Yes.
Or the first Magpul instructor?
No, not the. Chris Costa and Travis Haley were instructors there when I came on board.
Okay.
So it was, at the time, it was just the three of us doing that. However, most people don't know that I was at Magpul because I never wanted to be in any of the videos. Being medically retired and being at the units I was at, I wasn't going to be a good fit. Me doing ninja flips and running guns and shit like that. So
you were, because you like Steve so much, you said, "Hey, I'll let you get the fame."
Well, actually, before I let Magpul know that I was leaving Magpul, I started prepping the groundwork to get Steve in there because I thought he'd be a good fit.
And honestly, you were wrong. Terrible decision.
I was so wrong. Steve's a big dude. He's a funny dude. Everybody likes Steve. And the cool thing is that Steve was coming from a law enforcement background. At the time, at Dynamics, all three of us had military backgrounds. To which, a certain degree, I mean, that's part of what made it what it was, based on, our experiences in the military. But the practical application of military training and tactics in a civilian market can be very libelous at times. So Steve, I thought, would be a very good fit from a law enforcement background to kind of balance that out, better round Dynamics with the way that they approach their training, especially for the open enrollment classes and things like that.
Okay. I'll save something for later here. But so you were with Magpul, and we were talking about when Steve was on too. Is those DVDs came out, then that like set everything on fire. If you watch those DVDs, you were literally a certified instructor after that. At least that's what happened on the internet. But so you left Magpul and you started up Stoic Ventures. Now, before we talk about your company, the name you chose has a specific purpose to it, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I named the company Stoic Ventures because the Stoics were, of the mind that you use logic to reason instead of emotions. The reason why I named my company that, especially with training and consulting, is the fact that I've lost too many brothers, whether they didn't come home at all or they came home missing stuff or beat down, not able to, their bodies weren't working like they used to. Or mentally, I mean, there's mental scars out there too that happen, and a lot of these were induced because people made emotional decisions, and those emotional decisions, like what I'm talking about, is they acted in a threat environment. They acted out of fear or they acted out of rage, and that's primarily what happens to all of us. But the thing is when you're an operator and you're trained, you need to fight through that. And you can't let your own fucking emotions get the best of you and compromise the safety of your guys, of yourself, and of the mission. So that's kind of my reality check every day, and that's why I named the company Stoic Ventures, to kind of keep that, anchored with what I do out there and how we train.
Okay, so I would say that also goes to like teaching philosophy then of when you're instructing, whether it be an open enrollment or law enforcement. Is that one of the core kind of foundations of your firearms training that you try to have everybody leave with, and kind of like your philosophy of teaching your classes?
You can't teach people not to be emotional. All I can do is bring it to their awareness and let them know that getting emotional with that stuff is destructive. I just kind of use the example, hey, when you were 15 years old, 16 years old, and your mom or dad took away the car, or you got grounded, you want to just, yell at your parents and, punch the wall or do something.
I hate you, I'm moving away, you don't love me. Yeah, I have a 14-year-old.
Okay. Moral of the story is none of that does any good. What does good is getting your head back in the game and making stuff happen. That's the difference. And we've all been there. We've all acted out of emotions, every single one of us. But, in a threat environment, the first time you do that could be the last time you do anything else.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So what all classes do you offer for? Obviously, you do non-public or non-type of citizen law enforcement and military, but for the civilian market, what all classes do you offer?
We offer everything from precision rifle, long-range courses. There's about 3 of us in the country that are certified to teach the Horus reticle system and the Horus vision system for long range. So we do everything from that. I'll take guys out with the appropriate caliber. We're engaging out to 2,600 yards consistently.
Wow.
So we'll do everything from that on the precision side of the house to what I do is the other end of the spectrum, a ladies only intro to pistol class. I mean, as basic as it can be in, a real unintimidating environment for them. So they're not afraid to learn. They're not afraid to we go real slow. It's very methodical. But at the end of the day, I get so excited seeing these groups that these gals are shooting with these guns, and they've never picked up a gun before, or their husband bought them a gun, and they're like, I'm terrified to touch it. They leave with a sense of confidence and kind of an eagerness to continue training. And, I mean, that means the world to me. And I started doing that because students would say, hey, this was a great class. Do you do anything for women? Because if I try to teach my wife to shoot, we're going to be filing divorce papers. If you do it, she might listen, this, that, the other type of thing, and we'll see what happens. And, it's turned out to be a great thing. And my wife, I have her in most of the classes, which is great because, hey, when we're at home, it's just us and our German Shepherd. So, I mean, she's watching my back, and it gives us kind of that common ground too. So it's fun sharing that with other people, and knowing that you're helping good people. The good guys get a little bit better. So, but we offer everything from that kind of the intro class to carbine, pistol, shotgun, precision rifle, for open enrollment, but for entities, like most of the time it's different companies, security companies. We do executive protection, detail classes, detail leader classes, evasive defensive driving classes. So it's pretty spread out, and the other instructors that we have we've got a very diverse, well-versed background in those different areas that will bring people in to make sure that nobody's getting shortchanged when they come out.
All right. So my first question would be, when are you going to do the women's course intro in Wisconsin? Because I obviously need to get you to take my wife out. So we got to make that happen.
I'm going to have to look at your wildlife website and see when your deer season is, and we can figure something
out. It's right after Thanksgiving. So
we can make that happen.
All right. So definitely something I want to hit on because for those that don't know, and I put it on our Facebook a couple times because I love your Trigger Time TV videos, absolutely fantastic videos, and obviously you have can we say a little bit of love for shotgun? Is that a fair statement?
I love me some shotgun.
One question I do have to ask before I want to know some specific shotgun stuff here while we still have time. What is there a shotgun usage in the Marines and especially any sort of like special operations? Is the shotgun used at all, or is it mainly?
Oh yeah,
always like?
no, absolutely. My love affair for the shotgun actually started by me being a smartass in the Balkans, because we were going on raids almost daily, and we did not have we didn't trade rounds, really no engagement. So being a smartass, told the team leader, I was like, hey, I'm leaving the M4. I'm just taking the shotgun. All right, great, whatever. And I did. And the shotgun was used that day, and it was devastating. So after that, it went beyond just kind of we were using it as a multi-purpose tool for ballistic breach, as well as a destructive device that we would leave in in the skiff. So if any classified material had to get destroyed, if the natives got restless and overran, they'd use the shotgun. I've never seen that happen. I don't know if it's ever happened, in modern times, but we used it, and it was devastating. And even on ships, going on that, when you're fighting in close confines and even in fighting inside of structures, I mean, a shotgun is devastating. I mean, running double op buck out of that, and this is mid 90s, late 90s that we're doing this stuff in, and we had a few frange rounds for breaching and things like that, but it was a basically you'd go out with double op buck, and going on a DA mission with that, the structures that we're fighting inside of, I mean, it was devastating. And I'm not just talking from a physical aspect of it. Psychologically, the concussion from a shotgun inside of a structure, very different than like the crack of a rifle or the pop of a pistol being deployed inside of a structure. I don't know what it is. I can't explain it, but multiple times we had people just come out and like, fuck it, I'm done. We don't want to fight.
Just shotgun.
Yeah, it's in that too, and even when as far as to de-escalate force, when you draw down on somebody with that shotgun, and you've got that 12-inch entry upper on that gun, barrel rather, you're running that, and they can see the crimp on that wad. They don't want to act up anymore, and it gets them to calm down pretty quick, and you can get control of them and transport them after that. So it's my experience. It's a great tool. It's probably my favorite tool because after using it, I was just fascinated by it, and I just wanted to learn more and more and more about it because it's so, even to this day, it's so taken for granted, it's so misunderstood, and it's so poorly employed in the military and law enforcement now. And there's a few little things here, there, the other that turn it into a completely different weapon. And it's cool to share that with people and get them out there and they see it, they do it. Then you see different units running it, or you see different departments changing policy to run this gun. Because it really is devastating. I mean, it's a showstopper. I mean, you see, as far as incapacitation goes, you get hit with a shotgun, good luck. Especially buckshot, something like that. I'm not talking like bird shot or something like that. But it's extremely violent round. And if you just look, double op buck, it's 30. Let's see. It's just about 30, just a little bit bigger than 30 caliber. I think it's like 33 caliber, something like that. And you got 9 pellets, 8 pellets, whatever, depending on whose load you're running, coming into you at 1,200 feet per second. And that's like getting you and me and 7 of our friends to aim at relatively the same point on a target and press the trigger at the same time with our pistols. Yeah. I mean, that delivers a lot of trauma. And in a gunfight, I mean, time is life, and the faster you can incapacitate and put a threat down, the better off the good guys are going to be. So it is, because of how devastating and violent it is one of my favorite platforms.
I had a really specific question too. Is in one of the videos you talk about lights, and like you talk about in the video, and I think it's even crazier now since that video's come out. I think you can get 800, 1,000, 1,200 lumen handheld flashlights that will blind everyone in a 3-mile radius. But in the video you talk about, and it was fantastic showing as well, is you were like, hey, 100, 150 in that range for like a home self-defense light is adequate because of the white walls. And I thought that was an absolute home run point. Maybe if you could talk about, there's a little more to the video than white walls.
Sure.
But if you could talk about, like a home defense kind of shotgun setup, and then the light aspect, because that's very different than everybody is out there is, buy the new 5,000 lumen light.
So I'll talk about the lights first, and then I'll go over like a home defense shotgun setup. So starting off the lights, guys, I don't care if you've got a mini mag light for a light. I mean, you need a light on your weapon in the home. That point of fact. I'm going to be steadfast with that. And it doesn't need to be a weapons mounted light. So if you don't have a lot of money, I don't care. Get a light, because you can't shoot what you can't see. Now, yeah, you could go out there and guess what? You're going to take a shot at something that you can't identify or you can't see. That's one of those emotional decisions I'm talking about. Because you're shooting out of fear, because you're scared shitless, you're going to press a trigger and send a bolt that you can never take back, and you have no idea what you're firing at. So that, right there, that's day one stuff in my book. You got to be able to positively identify a threat or target before you engage it. Is it a friend or foe? You can't take that bullet back. I mean, one of my greatest fears is somebody using one of my guns to hurt somebody else with. Second is, if I ever would engage a friendly, you can't take that back. So, I mean, we need to be aware at all times, and to hold yourself to that standard, you need to have a light on your gun. So I don't care what it is. Get the best light you can afford, guys. And when I say best, I'm going to go over a few things. One, the interface of the light. Is it one of those, Costco brand lights that has 15 different modes? So you press it one, and then it's one, and then it's another one, then it flashes, then it does disco music or some other weird crap like that. Get something that's going to work for your application. Having that. Bright lights, I love them. The cool thing about the lights that are 1,000 lumens, 500 lumens, 350, whatever, anything over 200 lumens is very intense. The thing with those lights is it's a different playbook. It's almost like the lights under 200 lumens. It's almost like, okay, this is a different playbook because it's a different game. You need to employ those lights a little bit differently. And that's some of those things that you were talking about with what I did on Trigger Time TV, with using a lower lumen light, using the splash and the reflection of the light off of the white ceiling, off of the white walls, different things like that, to create a light canopy inside the room of the structure if you're searching it. The other manual for kind of the 200 plus lumens is, for example, let me use the Surefire light. I think right now it's the biggest kid on the playground right now, and that's the 1,000 lumen. So with that one, the coolest thing about that, you can hold that light anywhere, and 1,000 lumens is roughly as bright as a 45-watt incandescent light bulb. So it doesn't matter what you point it at or don't point it at. You just put it in that hole, and what I mean by that is any room. You put that in any room, closet, stairway, anything. It's going to fill it with light. It's just like turning on a lamp without a lampshade. It's just that light is going to fill the whole thing. So it's a different playbook than how it's traditionally used. So the traditional methodologies of how we employ lights with our weapon, guys, you got to remember, this is back in the day when, man, I remember using hose clamps and a mag light, getting it on my M4, doing that, and then we started getting some, hopped up, like crazy halogen bulbs that if you left the light on long enough, it would melt the plastic lens on your flashlight. I mean, it's come a long way.
Yeah.
So using that stuff, I mean, that was when you really needed to point it, and that light was so focused. It was that beam of light coming out, almost like a laser beam, for it to reach out and see anything. And even just in a dark room that might have been 20 by 20 feet, you're still not able to reach into those far corners. Now, you've got that surefire fury. I just got the tail cap. I could come in, boom, angle it anywhere. It's going to fill the whole room full of light. So moral of the story, any light is a good light. I'm not going to, talk on, I only have 1,000 lumen lights. That's all I use. I only use 100 lumen lights. That's all I use. There's arguments for everything. And my advice to everybody out there, train with what you got. There's only two things we got control over in a gunfight or in a threat, and that's ourselves and our equipment. And we can change our equipment, and we can learn and change ourselves. So if you get out there, train with it, and if you don't like it, instead of getting in some freak keyboard war on the computer with, some dude that lives in his mom's basement, I don't give a shit what he thinks. Going over there, I only use this light, and it does this, and the dexterity. Cool, nerd. Hang out and do nerd stuff. I'm going to go out there and do grown-up big boy stuff. So get out there and train with it. Get out there, find out what works, find out what doesn't. And it's a simple solution. You either modify the way you do it to fit your gear, because if your budget cannot afford you to get out there and get something that's superior, fine. But, if you do have something superior, learn how to use it, because it's not going to do you any good. And I'm telling you what, these new lights that are that intense, completely different game than running the old lights that weren't as bright. Night and day difference with the application on that. So, do you have any questions kind of like on the lights with that? Did I cover that all right?
No, you talked about that great. I guess my thing was, which I walked away with, it was, I mean, the wall thing is, because you're like 90% of houses are what color? White.
Yeah.
And I thought it was spot on. Also, you talked about how these won't blind yourself if you're in a very small environment.
Absolutely, and that's one of the things too. So, guys, lower lumen lights type of thing. Just because a flashlight, let's just say 100 lumens for right now, just because it's a nice round number. 100 lumen from manufacturer A will have a completely different spotlight and floodlight as it's shown, because if you look at your flashlight, you turn it on, you'll see that spotlight, the really intense part in the middle, and then outboard, that flood that kind of opens up. Every manufacturer's is different. So 100 lumen from company A is not going to be like 100 lumen from company B. And our perception, we could be like, wow, this one's a lot brighter, or this one's a lot different. And it really kind of goes to the way that those lenses on those modules are shaped to, splash the light out there, focus it or defocus the light and send it out. So that being said, with the lower lumen lights, those are great if you've got a lot of reflective surfaces in your home. A lot of pictures, which are oftentimes behind glass. Paintings, you get stuff like, whatever. Stuff that's behind glass is going to reflect light. You got mirrors hanging up. Most of us have, wives, girlfriends, significant others, things like that. Man, one thing they like to do is hang shit on the walls. And that stuff, if you're going to be going around with 1,000 lumen light and you're holding it up here and you're doing your search, you're in search mode coming around, your retinas are going to be burnt on the backside of your head. So we changed the methodologies for doing that. So, using a lower lumen, getting that light splash either off the walls, if you can, if you don't have a lot of clutter on the walls, is a great way. Another great way is just creating a canopy by holding that light like this, shining it up, and you can angle it this way, that way, however you want to. Just come out here, boom, 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 off the ceiling, and it'll create a nice canopy of light. Light will flow down, and it will fill the room. So you're not limited by lumens, all right? So get out there, try some of these things out if you can. Like I said, the engagement, is it a click on, click off? Is it just a pressure switch? Is it a tape switch because it's a weapon-mounted light? Do I have to click something? Just learn your equipment. Find out something that's comfortable for you, and be confident with it. You got to be tactically and technically proficient with these pieces of equipment. So get after it.
Okay. Well, we're not going to hit on half the other stuff that I have for you here. So I'll move on to our last segment of the show here. Then we're going to wrap it up.
Okay.
But we're going to do a little fun here. So we're going to do a little whose gun line is it anyways? The questions are made up and the points don't matter. So the games we're going to be playing tonight with Mike here are rapid fire and single action. So our first game of the night we're going to be playing is rapid fire. The rules of this segment are simple, Mike. I'm asking you a series of questions, and you can only answer yes or no, and there's no explanation. Simply yes or no. You ready?
Send it.
All right. Is 9mm better than 40 Smith & Wesson and 45 ACP?
Yes.
Is the AR-15 better than the AK platform?
Yes.
Is it true that you have been in a tactical tickle pillow fight with another man?
Yes.
Is it true that shotguns are better for home defense than rifles and handguns?
Yes.
Could you beat both Costa and Yeti in an arm wrestling contest going against both at the same time?
Yes. And just a teaser, I wouldn't be using my arm.
Is firearms precision more important than speed?
Yes.
Are you legally required to carry a CCW because of the size of your arms?
No.
Oh. All right. You survived single fire. We'll move on to our single action. So in this segment, we're gonna, instead of answering questions yes or no, you can answer them, which is the first one that pops to your mind. You're still not allowed to explain, just the first answer that comes to mind. So what is your favorite handgun?
The one that works.
What is your favorite rifle?
Same.
What is your favorite caliber?
The one I have.
Okay. If you had to pick an SBR or a suppressed rifle, which one?
Suppressed rifle.
Who has the better beard, Yeti or Costa?
Costa.
If you could build an AR in any caliber other than 5.56, what would it be?
Remington 375 Ultra Mag.
Ooh. What is your most wanted handgun to shoot that you haven't?
One from Yasser Arafat's collection.
The gold one? I don't know. What about rifles? Is there any rifle that you want to shoot that you haven't yet?
One from Ahmadinejad's collection.
What firearms instructor do you look up to?
I'm going to have to go back to Colonel Cooper on that one.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is the segment. Congratulations. So I was hoping we could get I was hoping we get Yeti in here to administer that segment, but he is unfortunately traveling right now. So yeah. I'm sure he would have made it a little funner.
Well, he just got a new watch and he doesn't know how to tell hands yet. So it's if it was a digital watch, it would have been okay, but he doesn't know how to tell hands. So give him time.
All right. Well, let's move on and wrap up the show here. But so, Mike, Stoic Ventures, stoicventures.com. What open enrollment, what available classes do you have that if people want to maybe train with you, what do you got coming up that they could look into?
We've got, I think coming up, we've got a Carbine 3 class, which is a lot of movement, a lot of transition. Pretty much what we teach in class. I don't teach tactical classes. There's nothing tactical about shooting at a target that isn't shooting back at you. I teach 3 things. I teach weapons manipulation, I teach marksmanship, and I teach mindset, because that's what we got control over. You asked me before, is accuracy better than speed? Absolutely. Because if you're accurate all the time, you're training, you're getting perfect practice, guess what? When you're in a threat situation, you're going to do shit harder and faster than you've ever done it before in your entire life. So I don't care how fast you could do shit on YouTube on a 2-dimensional range when nobody's shooting back at you. It's what you can do, and I don't care how fast you miss when somebody's shooting at you either. That doesn't look good either. So, getting your hits, because we can't hit them if we can't hurt them. But, go over a lot of that stuff. We've got some precision rifle classes coming up. We've got some shotgun classes coming up in September and October. And, we'll just be working through the gamut until then.
All right. So, well, thank you for coming on, man. Really appreciate it. I didn't get to half of the gear stuff that I wanted to bother you about. And, really, and the mindset thing, which you just hit on there. Again, there's in the show notes here, there's a great playlist of your videos on trigger time. But mindset was definitely one I want to hit on you. So hopefully we'll get you back on sometime and definitely talk about the mindset because you have a great video on that. And the incapacitating a bad guy, another absolutely fantastic video which you break down. So, but we'll wrap it up here. So as always, guys, we really want your feedback here at Practically Tactical. So please send us any compliments, feedback, guest suggestions to nick@firearmsradio.tv. Again, please give us a review on iTunes as it helps us out greatly. Find us on Facebook. Find Stoic Ventures on Facebook. And as always, guys, please go check out Handgun Radio here on the Firearms Radio Network as well, hosted by Ryan Machad. Fantastic show. And if you like revolvers, it's definitely the podcast to check out. So check that out. And you can search it on iTunes as well, Handgun Radio. So, Mike, thanks again for coming on, dude. Yeah, I think you dropped some knowledge bombs. And one of these times I'll have to get you and Yeti on here, and we'll do the arm wrestling thing live on video, so we can get the results for forever.
There we go. Thanks for having me, Nick. I appreciate it.
So as always, guys and gals, thanks for tuning in. Thank you for listening. We greatly appreciate it, and take care.